All right, let me just set up here for 1 second, and I'm going to get into my reading. Let's get this going. Like there's anybody actually waiting on me to talk right now. This is going to be the Astrological Age of Aries. It's another in a series of videos that I'm doing. It's not a horoscope sign of Aries. It has to do with precessional cycles. So it's going to be a time period of, I can type, there you go, about 21,000 years and change. Yeah. Getting better at this. Okay. Close these tabs. Okay. So I usually do a little bit of notes first. I've got a few left to do. I'm not really doing them in order, although the last couple of ones have been. Let me cross this out because I'm actively working on it. Okay. So the Age of Aries, the last one that we had was approximately 2300, 2200 BC, and to about 100 or so BC, and it followed the Age of Taurus, and then so the next Age of Aries is not gonna be for about 23,000 years from now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull some cards for the previous age. I forgot to clear them. Forgot to clear the decks before I started. And then I'm going to pull some cards for the last age. I'm going to pull some cards for the next age. That's going to be like working on a project, and then 23,000 years you're going to work on the project again. It's like taking the second half of the course next semester. So we'll find out what's going to be continued to be worked on, and then I'm going to get like a bridge to see. I mean, the themes are usually pretty evident, but I like to get some bridge cards to find out what themes for Aries are going to be happening during the interim. And it's usual with these readings, there's things that happen on the macrocosm of this almost 26,000 year cycle that can be broken down into what's happening in Aries right now, what's happening for you if you are in Aries, and what's happening with planets that are interacting with the Aries region of space. So the Age of Aries is when the sunrise on the spring equinox occurs in the constellation of Aries. And then the autumnal equinox is Libra. And a lot of the things I was looking at said that it's a secondary energy, which is why there's a lot of lawmaking and a lot of duality. And what I found especially in the Age of Taurus, because I think that was the last one I did, that as it went further into the patriarchy after Gemini, instead of male and female, the female was replaced by sort of a younger male identity, so that both halves of the brain were controlled by this male energy. And what happens in the Age of Aries is that instead of sort of younger usurper and an older male identity, there's a duality of a priest and the king, and they're separate and often in conflict with each other, because the ruler of Aries is Mars, which has to do with war and stubbornness, unrest, but also this sort of rigid, linear masculine energy way of thinking of laws, hierarchies, classes, and then also it's still in this mindset of materialism. So what happens is Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, so you have a lot of things beginning, but then I always forget that this thing cuts out on me repeatedly. So it usually stalls out when I'm talking, and I have to wait like 30 seconds for it to come back. So if it stalls out, just wait while you're watching it. Okay. Yeah, so coming into the Age of Aries, there's a lot of destruction of previous empires. So the Middle Kingdom in Egypt was completely destroyed, and then in the time of Aries, you have the New Kingdom in Egypt, which is a different dynasty altogether. And then, so they talked about Akhenaten. So I think Ramses II would have come under the Ram, because I just did like a whole bunch of research on him. And then there's the whole, in terms of well-known biblical history, there'd be the Exodus and the beginning of Hebrew prophets. So they're not being ruled by whatever king anymore. They're going into this sort of priest rulership where they now have prophets. And then also you have Hammurabi in Babylon, who's famous for his code of law, although they would have been rather strict. And then in India, you have the Vedas. And then there was a thing going on in China during the Age of Aries where there was a lot of warring states. And then by the end of Aries, as it headed into Pisces, there was a unification. But in general, there's a lot of impulsive war, a lot of conquest. So we have these different historical empires in the Age of Aries kind of expanding, encroaching on other empires, and then like coming back like this lava lamp of empires. So you have the Hittites and the Persians and the Egyptians, and then towards the end you start getting the Roman Empire. You get the Mycenaeans going into the Greek islands and colonizing them. So it's just a lot of warring, a lot of military stuff. And then also in particular during the time of Ramses II, sort of brand new idea. It's like, oh, we're doing this new thing now called treaties. So instead of fighting the Hittite king again, he was like, hey, let's have a treaty, and I guess I'll marry your daughter, thanks for the dowry. So that's more of like a later on kind of thing, but it's basically give me stuff. Like the farming that we've been doing, that we learned how to do, is letting us stay in one place and have agriculture. Now we can feed this whole empire. Now we can go raid them and take their stuff. So it's materialism, it's stuff, and then it's also made possible by the Iron Age starting in the second half of Aries. So to do with this, this very like intense masculine thought process, you have this creation of technology in terms of weaponry, and with Mars being and Aries being fire elementals, you have smelting of iron. So you're not just doing bronze casting anymore, this sort of formation, sort of more feminine process of casting bronze. Now you're smelting iron, and you've got battering rams, you've got swords, and all kinds of other things like that. And then also during this period, there were sort of failed attempts at monotheism. It's like, it's kind of like saying during the Age of Aries, we're still dealing with this duality. Instead of male-female, now we have prophet and we have king. So it's like saying that the priesthood is a male society that's taken over the feminine, creative mystery, keepers of the mystery role. But they're very territorial, because we find out in the case of Akhenaten, when he was trying to switch what was going on with what they were, which astrological sign they were worshiping, the priesthood was like, WTF, like, we're not doing monotheism because it's going to take all my money away, you son of a bitch. So they like actively like murdered him or whatever. So there's this aggressive struggle from the priesthood against the kings, and this sort of like dancing with monotheism, because Akhenaten wanted to be monotheistic. And then you have the Moses and his people, he goes and he says like, well, we're not going to worship the bull anymore because we're in the age of Aries. And this sort of moving towards monotheism, at least in terms of that religious space. It didn't really didn't really hold firm until the age of Pisces, when Christianity came through. So it's just practicing monotheism, but this constant like fighting back and forth because of all the, you know, wanting to be on top energy. Anything else I want in here? I had a lot of notes. Oh yeah, so it was like during the course of Aries, as it went from Taurus to Pisces, it was gradually from like entire materialism towards more faith-based, a lot of religious sects, different religious sects and thinking. Oh, okay, yeah, and with laws, it was it went more from like eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of laws towards a correctness of social relationships. But there was still a lot going on with like caste systems and hierarchies and monarchies. Yeah, and then you find like in Aries, the Martian, as in related to the Mars energy, the Old Testament God was vindictive and angry and butthurt a lot of the time. It has to do with that conflicting Aries energy. Let's see, what else? Is that it? Oh, and then I did mention that in the age of Taurus, because it was coming out of the age of Taurus into Aries. It was that whole Abrahamic story where instead of human sacrifice, he was suddenly inspired to do animal sacrifice. That was another thing that happened during the age of Aries. And then obviously you'd find a lot of ram-related myths, like the Golden Fleece and ram statuary instead of bull statuary. So that's getting kind of tedious. So the decks that I was compelled to pull for this reading are this deck. It's a Pinnacle or Pinnacle. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. I've only ever seen it in print. So this is a deck, and it's only got, it's like 9 through Ace, 2 sets. And I use it as a twin flame deck, but I was called to use it, and I think it's because of that. There, God damn it. Because there's still a dual nature in terms of brain. It's the priesthood fighting the king, and you'd think it would be a system of checks and balances, but they're in a constant state of conflict, like a Cold War, like a détente. So I think that's probably why I was told to use this deck. And then also I've got the Valentine Angel deck here. So that's the other one that seemed like it wanted to come out and play. So even though I did the skimming of the research, clear. I'm going to pull some cards anyway, because it's going to help. Is it not unable to? Oh, what was I saying? Oh, most of the time it ends up having to do with consciousness expansion in different halves of the brain, I find, when I do the readings. One of the themes too is that we've been in the age of patriarchy for like the last 6,000 years. So the age of Aries is really no different. It's very left-brained and aggressive, and not frequently compassionate. Although, you know, it's not like solid all the time. The sort of, you know, that young energy of kids play fighting, except like actually fighting. So let me grab, just do like 3 cards of each deck for the last age, just to simplify it. It frustrates me how this cuts out on me continuously. Okay, there's 2 and 3. Background energy. 15. Ego. So this is usually the devil card. So we have materialism, we have ego, we have I'm the king of the mountain. Give me all this stuff. A false sense of entrapment, being overly focused on material things, negative or fear-based thoughts. So it's this idea of I have to take all this stuff because if I don't, then I won't have things. This empire building consciousness. So let me get 3 cards from this twin flame, from this duality deck here. The red bicycling cherubs here. Should also point out that when I do lives, my camera is craptastic instead of semi-functional. It's like I can either have higher quality videos or that take 6 hours to combine different 20-minute segments, or I can do a live video where I don't have to wait for it and the quality is shitty. So it's the duality. I just don't have the patience right now. I just want to get a video done and feel like I accomplished something. I did a reading for a client the other night, and I love doing it so much. And I get super excited and into it. So I want the quality to be better. And I had to, you know, sleep on it and wait for it to combine. But just doing collective messages, I feel like sometimes after the vehicles go by the window, too fast, I need 3 cards. I don't always feel like waiting. Oh, hello. Oh my God, why? Just started a cascade. That gosh. I'm surprised to see that one there. It's the Queen of Wands. My lady wants in on the fire action with this Aries sign here. All right, 2 more cards and for me to stop rambling. I decided to get fancy. I put a little makeup on for this video. I'm in like extreme physical agony right now, so I figured if I took 2 seconds to make myself pretty, I'd feel better. All right, there we go. Ooh, almost dried out. Okay, so the background. Okay, so we have the 10 of Wands inverted for this sort of background energy. So in conjunction with ego, we have, I'm not going to put up with all these swords in my back. I'm going to get you first. It's none of this et tu brute stuff. We write it down. And also just the sense of the Aryan starting stuff, but not necessarily finishing it because the completion is in reverse. So it's like saying we've started learning new. Oh my God, my phone! What the hell? We've started learning new things in this past age of Aries, but we're not going to finish this lesson until we get to the next one in 23. 25,000 years later after the other one. Okay, so I'll do these in pairs. So Page of Air in reverse. So it's Page of Swords. So right off the bat, there's something not fully the truth or lack of communication. And then the Queen of Swords in reverse. So here we're in the fire element in the Age of Aries, and the Queen with the feminine energy is out of balance because she's kind of like a trophy in this age. She, you know, the women don't really get to have names in history, and they're not necessarily significant unless they're passing on, you know, the king line, but it's still under male control. And then we have the Page of Air. So upright, it says challenging information, delays or changes to plans, truth delivered without tact, logical, honest, impulsive, and curious. So here it's like the essence of these two cards together to me is saying that the woman isn't allowed to speak from her perspective in this era. It's like the priesthood is speaking for her. She might be sort of cold and bitter at this point, but we're not even really considering her, because the Age of Aries is all about masculine energy, masculine. And you see that because the ram has two horns curling out of their head. And even some statues of Moses, who was a figure of the Age of Aries, have horns on them. You can see them like, I want to say Michelangelo, but it might be mistaken. There's a famous statue of Moses that has horns on it, like a marble statue. So in the Age of Aries, it's the male energy is trying to dominate both halves of the brain, and the feminine aspect, the creative, intuitive, passionate feminine, is being silenced. And so we have upright. Interesting. So we have the Page of Wands and the Ace of Air. So this is a really similar combination. You can see here that the Page, so that's that young beginning energy, like, because Aries is the beginning of the zodiac, and it's a page, which, you know, sometimes the page is called a princess, but it's usually a male character. So we have this young male energy learning how to access truth and to speak with authority. You know, it's not just in the age of Taurus still tied to the female. It's like, no, I'm Spartacus. Like, it's not really a good example, but it's like, I'm the leader. Like, I am the monarch. You do what I say. These are my laws. Brilliant new ideas and inspirations, seeing the truth of a situation, a challenging beginning. So it's a beginning of a new way of thinking and behavior, and it's challenging because we have all these upstart masculine energies trying to best each other, which is why we have all these empires breathing in and out, which is actually a very I feel like breath is very feminine, even though air is a male element. So both of these cards, fire and air, are both masculine elements. So it's a very male-dominated reading for the last Age of Aries. Okay. Queen of Water. and the Nine of Cups in reverse. So right now, nightmares. And here we go. Relationships develop to a new level. Trust your intuition. Care for yourself and others. But the feminine energy is in a nightmare state, which tells me that this idea of relationships with other people have been structured with laws and codes and castes in society. So the way that people are being cared for is, it's not anarchy, it's laws and punishment. So it's not nurturing, it's like dispatch. It's like running scheduled stuff. So it's in that way, life isn't really a dream. It's existing in this. Nine of Hearts inverted is basically Nine of Swords. So that this upstart, listen to what I tell you, male energy is like, well, I'm gonna take care of you. You'll be taken care of, you know. But you gotta pay the rent on your existence, basically. You know, we wouldn't want to see anybody get hurt, so you better pay us the money. That's the kind of energy that I get for that age. So I want to take some cards for the next age, because I don't want this reading to be like immensely long. It's a half an hour. Most of that was just the history. I'll just shuffle it this way. So I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I guess we're getting that one. Holy crap. Okay. Okay. Not surprised to see those. All right, let's... Interesting, the Ace of Water. Falling in love or the resurgence of a relationship, spiritual growth and enhanced intuition, a new home. Oh, that's for the next one. This is for the next age in like 23,000 years. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen between this age and the next one is code switching. We already see this idea of the Queen of Water being a concept, but not really, but she's not allowed to speak. So in the next age, we're going to say, okay, so let me stop thinking about it so much and let me try to feel a little bit. I'm learning how to, instead of taking over the creative, intuitive zone with the masculine priesthood, I'm going to learn how to start over with an emotional base to my decisions in my relationship with people, instead of giving out this authoritative list of how you can and can't be. It's, oh, my little thingy's breaking here. It's on the cards. Yeah, so this is like saying, well, in the next age we're going to learn to think with something besides the ego. All right, and let me get some cards from this other deck here, and then I'll go over the other ones. Interesting. This is like very rhythmic. It's like pairs of, well, some of that's because these are all like court cards almost. That's what I was told to use. I guess because, well, it makes sense to use court cards if, like, dictatorship and and emperors are in charge, because they're not going to take no for an answer, really. Okay, so this is the King of Pentacles. So we're still dealing with this idea of having stuff and materialism, but we're coming into it balanced. Because the King can be a 1 or a 14, and 14 is temperance, which is balance. So a King of Pentacles who's balanced is, he's in an earth element, which is, it's like the masculine earth feminine element. And water is like the feminine element. So he's balanced the fire of Aries with the water of feelings and intuition, and he's ready to come back and try to deal with this concept of materialism and ruling from a new perspective, which is why he's got the Ace of Water to work with. Now, if we have 14 and 1 together, that's that ego number again, 15, the devil. Or it could be a 1 and a 1, which could be 2, the High Priestess, or making choices. Or it could be 11, which is like this divine timing, long-term, eons of plan kind of energy. So I can see what's happening right off the bat, and I'm going to start with, oh, I'm going to put these in the same, in the other order, so that they come out the same kind of way. There. All right. So, yeah. Interesting. Okay. So here the Queen of Wands is still inverted, but we have the 2 of air here, which is possibly this number 2 of the background energy. Being unable or unwilling to make a decision, a stalemate, pretending there is no problem. That's in this deck. Usually the 2 of Swords can also be the High Priestess out in her yard training with the swords. You know, like with Napoleon Dynamite with his nunchucks. But it's blindfolded training with swords. And in that way, I feel like the Queen of Wands isn't being silent. She's saying, well, I'm going to go practice out back while you figure out your stuff. And let me know when you want my advice. That's how I feel like in the next age. Or it's like she's not shut up in the convent. She's just hanging out back. Just chilling. All right, so now we have the Ace of Fire instead of the Ace of Air in the water here. So we've got fire and water for this king here. He's balancing them. He's starting out brand new with this, what he's learned from the last age, and he's pulling it in and trying to say, well, I tried all these things with only fire, and I don't think it worked out that well for me. My empire was bankrupt, and all my people were taken into slavery, and they stole all my gold and silver, and my dynasty died out because we had no money, and everybody kept murdering each other so they could be the next king. So that didn't work out very well. So we're saying an exciting new opportunity, career advancement, change your life now, in conjunction with this enhanced intuition, a new home, and resurgence of relationships. So it's like saying, it's like this idea of kingship, like a long, long time ago, was supposed to be the king took care of the people and the land. He was like a benevolent protector. He wasn't just some dude who like took half for himself and everybody else is eating breadcrumbs. So with career advancement and enhanced intuition and relationships, it's like saying the king is going to keep elevating until he gets to this emperor kind of energy where he's rational and he's in control of all the elements, because he's working with this fire Martian energy, but he's enhancing it with compassion and wisdom. And in that way, he won't get knocked off the throne and killed by a rival empire, or his brother or his nephew or his oldest son. He'll be, you know, people will be like, thank you, and we want you to keep being more king. And he's paired with the Queen of Pentacles. So it's like saying this queen here is sliding out of the masculine element into a more feminine state where she's allowed to exist. And he's like, hey, thanks for hanging out. Like, aren't we a nice pair? Because they're able to communicate on the same level instead of just I'm the man, shut up kind of an energy that you'd get with the patriarchy and this sort of warring empire. So he's intuitive, he's having relationships that are working with people around him, that's helping his career. He's got stuff, but he doesn't hoard it. He's like, I'm good, everybody's got stuff. We're abundant in the kingdom because we don't feel like we have a sense of lack. We feel like we're creating. We're growing more food. We're not running out of it because we have less than these people over here. And this other one here is 5 of Water and the 10 of Pentacles. So 5 of Water is things not turning out the way you'd hope, not seeing the positive in a situation and crying over spilled milk. So for me, this card is saying we're thinking about this last age and we feel like we kind of fucked up. Like left out in the cold. Like we thought we were doing everything to get what we wanted and it didn't work. And if we stay in that energy, this is what we're going to have. But if we work on these things that we learned in this next age, then we will have this 10 of Pentacles with the Queen and the King and a pair of aces. All right. So let me get some cards for the bridge between the two eras. Oh, I'm out of order again. I think they need to be in a certain order anyway. So I'm going to just get 2 cards for the bridge. Why my eyes always look so dark? They're actually blue. No, that wasn't the right one. I gotta put that back. Okay. So the background here, the Knight of Air. So in between the last age and the next age, which is in part where we're at now, because we're between the age of Aries. Events that occur with great speed. Take time to carefully review your options, creative solutions. So Aries can be sort of headstrong, hot to trot, kind of starting things without finishing them, rushing in, half-cocked kind of an idea. So it's in the interim, what this Aries mind that needs to do is to say, okay, well, we can still rush in and roar and go and like get into stuff, but take a little bit of thought, come up with practical, creative solutions, and while you're putting your armor on and saddling up and changing your horse and whatnot. intelligent, decisive, idealistic, and tireless. So ready to go and hurrying and willing to do some work. And the unicorn here, its horn is glowing. So we have this Aries horns, and then we see this like third eye opening kind of thing going on here. So in the interim, consciousness expansion is going to help people come up with these creative solutions while they're running in there to like, oh, I got to do the thing. That Aries energy. All right, so let me get, oh, let me get 2 cards for this, for the bridge. Oh, swords. Swords. All right. Oh, I guess that's it. All right. This is the King of Wands in reverse. So this is this like dictator energy of like complete and total authoritarianism. And we've seen a lot of that, even so lately. So this is something that has to be worked on in conjunction with this during the between Aries eras. 23,000 years to clear that shit up. So let's see what's going to help with that. So we have the 9 of Cups in reverse and the Queen of Swords in reverse. So upright, the 9 of Cups is saying your wishes come true, concerns fade away, and a love life. For me, this bridge is very similar to this, except the Queen is Swords and she's in reverse. Because the 9 of Cups inverted is like the 9 of Swords. Okay, it's like a code switch with this like added bonus. So the message here is when you're in this dictator, I must control an empire that encompasses the entire world energy. What you wished for will often come back and bite you in the ass like a nightmare. I mean, for instance, Alexander the Great conquered a whole bunch of crap within a span of like 4 years, and then he died really young. And he accomplished, you know, not a whole hell of a lot because of it. Because you know, he may have made it all the way into India, but he wasn't able to hold on to that quote dream because he was just so focused on conquering. And I think he got sick with something, or somebody murdered him or whatever, but he was like in his 20s or 30s or something. So it's not a very, like, the plan doesn't have a lot of longevity. If you conquer all these lands just to say that you have them and take all the people, the, you know, human and material resources, you're making a lot of enemies. And that's what I feel this is coming in. And the Queen of Swords is a very cutting stuff out, but in the inverted position, it can be like an off with your head. It's like the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. Off with his head. Very authoritarian. So essentially this combo is reiterating this. Now what's going on here? I think I got this card to begin with. Or was that the Ten of Wands? Maybe it was Wands before. Maybe I misread that. I'll have to watch this from the beginning. Thought it was Swords though. And so again, it's Swords and Water. So we have the Page of Water and then the Ten of Swords, but it's in reverse. So we're in the interim, we're not done dealing with all these knives in our back yet. We're not completing this progression of thoughts, but it's because it's an interim. We don't finish it until we get to that next age when we have this energy come back to really work on it. So this is what's happening in the interim. We're not completing it yet. We're in the 10, so we're past the 9 of Swords, which is that Nightmares card. So we sort of woken up from that, but we're not really sure what to do because we still feel like everybody's out to get us. You know, like I need to fortify. Fortify! The Page of Water here is intuitive, sensitive, artistic, and friendly. A new person enters your life. A relationship begins a new phase. Heightened psychic abilities. So what's happening is after you wake up from this nightmare phase of conquer at all costs, you're in this liminal zone of what am I doing? I don't want to be stabbed in the back. And what happens is this, in between the 10 and the 11 here, because the page is 11 or 1, is this zone where you're just kind of, oh, and then additionally, if this is an 11 and this is a 10, which would be like 1, 0, you have a 12. So it's the Hanged Man. You're just sort of hanging out in here, waiting to start something with the 0, with the Fool, new beginning. The idea is that you're in a holding pattern on this inverted 10 of Swords. You know, if you step in one direction in the wrong way, you're going to get all these spikes through. And if you step the other way, you know, you're back in the nightmares. So what happens is in this holding pattern here, in the bridge between the last age and the next age, is a little bit of intuition starts coming in. I don't know how to do this, but I guess I'm getting in my emotions. I don't want to feel the pain, but I'm waking up from the nightmares. So it's like the screaming of people being ripped in half and bleeding, and, you know, chariot dust in the plains is still fresh in your mind, but you're no longer in this fever dream. You've woken up, but you're still kind of paranoid. So you're a little bit wary of any kind of emotions and intuition coming in, but it's starting to happen. So that by the time you get into the next age, you're getting that King of Pentacles with the Ace of Cups. I think it was the Ace because I put it back in the deck. So this pair right here is really the key element. It's a holding pattern. Learning to feel, learning to deal with intuition. So that's what's happening. Let's see if I can make a synopsis of this. It has to do, the precessional cycle has to do with a lot with the Yuga cycles as well. It's not the same thing entirely, but there's a lot going on there. So what we have is like the last golden age in Leo kind of people started falling backwards in consciousness and went from this sort of egalitarian society, the matriarchal clan society, into one where the masculine element started having more, and also like in history, it was like humanity suffered a cataclysm. It was very traumatic for everybody's like energies, both male and female. So by the time they got to Leo, things were like in this sort of golden age. And then, you know, we had this matriarchal clan thing. And then what happened was the male energy started saying, hey, let's be partners. And then the male energy was like, no, just kidding. I'm going to be the leader. And then the male energy was like, screw you. Like I'm in charge. We're the patriarchy now. And that's what the Age of Aries is. It's not saying they're bad or wrong. It's saying they were traumatized. Their brain had to create new pathways to function after the global cataclysm, and they're learning how to be human again, and it's taking them several thousands of years. So the female energy way of reviving from this brain, like emotional human lineage brain being fried, was a different response and sort of happened sooner than the male response to energy response of linear thinking. This sort of like the female energy was like, woo, okay, let's go, like whoop, near, you know, like the female energy after the cataclysm was like up, 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 and then kind of plateaued, and the male energy was like, I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, all of a sudden, patriarchy. You know, like, let's go. So what happens is that neither one of them is really balanced, and what's happening in the interim is that each energy is learning that they're tied to the other one because of that whole yin-yang thing. Where there's a little bit of masculine in the feminine and a little bit of feminine in the masculine. So we're finding that we have to work together. And what's happening is that over time, the energies are balancing off again from that, you know, like traumatic shock, like your brain fallout, you don't remember how to do things situation. So the Age of Aries has a specific energy value where it's two halves of the brain are both in a male energy and they're competing. And what's happening in the interim is this getting over this nightmare that caused. And then in the next age, it's like, oh, wait, this other male energy is supposed to be like intuitive feminine energy. What if I try working with that? Oh, okay, well, maybe now I can actually get what I wanted. That's kind of the arc of the story for the Aries energy. So it's not anything, it's like not particularly bad in and of itself. It's just a way of thinking and functioning that has to do with evolution of consciousness. So don't say like, you shouldn't say to yourself, oh, like, oh, because I'm in Aries, it's my, like, the patriarchy is my fault and I'm such a piece of crap, and it's not, it's nothing like that at all. It has to do with which energies are at play and how you're thinking. If you're thinking from ego, then you're not attached to any kind of intuition. You're functioning solely in your head and nothing else. You're like, I only think about what I can see and what I can grab and what I can have. You know, it's like, it's like you wouldn't necessarily need like great preparations for an afterlife, you know, but if unless you were afraid that all of your stuff was going to be taken away from you when you died. I don't know if that makes any sense. This is my elastic is shredded. I can't use it anymore. A different one. Color do I want for this deck? There's I guess the blue one just doesn't seem the same. I guess the bright pink one. The purple. No, I like the dark green on this one. I don't like this other one. I'll use the black one for now. Black one for now. So, and I'm finding this out, especially with all of these astrological age readings. All it essentially is describing evolution of thought processes. You know, where I would say the age of Aries is like thinking with two squares. All volumes are cubic. There's no rounded edges. And as you find with two pointy things, like horns, eventually you might get a little bit injured. There's not a lot of looking before you leap in that energy phase. So I think that makes sense, more or less. I don't really think there's anything else I want to say about it right now. That was it for the cards. Oh, please take a look at the playlists, because you'll find the other astrological ages. Is this even going to focus on this piece of crap? That's probably about as good as it's going to get. Oh, maybe if I let more light in. All right. So check out the astrological age playlist. You'll see the other ones. There's like 4 that I still need to do. So you can, what's today? There's 2 days left on my 2 days left on my end of August sale, so you can get 2 readings for the price of one, like 1 reading and then one of equal or lesser value for free, or you can get 1 reading for half price. And all those are listed in the infomercial video. You'll see links below, both in the comments and in the description of this video. But all the details are in the description box of the infomercial video, and then the video itself is like a dry run through the readings that I have. So I've got art merchandise on Cafe Press. If you want to get a reading, it's PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Feel free to email me at thecatcamebackatcamp@gmail.com. Is that it? Oh, if you go to my DeviantArt, you'll see in my gallery there's a section called Wares. They're physical items that I have for sale right now, like my chapbook and card packets, like a drawing that I need to sell, a stack of 4 paintings, and you can get the, what's it called? I forgot how to do words. Template for the foam lotus flower. You can also get prints there, and then merch like this at Cafe Press. So the most similar reading to the astrological age readings is called Roadblock Moguls. So I have a bunch of different kinds of readings. They're at varying prices. The cheapest is $9, but if you're going to get it on sale, you could get it for $4.50 right now if you want a single reading. So sale for 2 more days. Please like, share, comment, and also especially subscribe, because it's really simple and doesn't involve a lot of commitment. Helps me out. Okay. Bye.